Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Bite clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Somebody please think of the children!
Okay, I have to admit something. I've been watching TikTok too much, and like there's like a trend on TikTok. I don't know if it's like crossed over where people are like, there's a horrible song, it's do 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 do, and people are doing this like side thing while someone's trying to stab them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what is up with that? It's like stuck in my head, and I just can't get that little bleep song out of my mind, and it's driving me absolutely bonkers. Between that and Sam Smith, a song that hasn't even come out yet, and I'm so sick of hearing it.
Oh, the corn song is one in my head.
Oh.
It's corn.
It's corn.
A big lump of dubs. It's got the juice. It's got the juice.
I'm glad he's having his little moment, though. That little kid is adorable. It just, the song is ubiquitous anymore on TikTok.
Shout out to C-Bot. That whole...
Is that the sex one?
Yeah. That is the sex one. That is, in fact, the sex one. I'm surprised Steve hasn't started yelling it in the background. Yes. The one where the guy revealed that he used that song to fuck his girlfriend for 2 years, and then she was like, I cannot do this anymore.
That's horrible.
Yeah. My favorite were people were like, you could not have waterboarded this information out of me.
I never want to even think about that.
Apparently, like, his Reddit name was his actual name, and he made a TikTok about it, and I was like, my brother in Christ, what are you doing?
No.
Stop.
No.
Anyway. What are we doing?
And this has been TikTok Live. Welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly our weekly minisode where we talk about TikToks, apparently. No, we talk about the things that we've been watching and reading, I think, this week. I'm Terry.
And I am Mary Beth. And this week we are talking about that twisty new horror film, a horror prequel, an adorable mockumentary, a book that is seared its way into Mary Beth's subconscious, and a morgue receptionist named Poop and Plots.
I mean, how can you go from talking about a book that's seared into your consciousness into Poop and Plots? But we are going to make that shit work.
I swear to you, they could not be more different. I guarantee to you that they are so different, but that's okay. That's what we love here. But I want to hear about that twisty new horror film.
So I was having a struggle about what to cover this week because I've seen a couple things this week and a lot of them have been not good. I saw the new Thor movie. Sorry, Andrew Lassane did not like it. He told me to delete that comment on Twitter, but I did not like it. And then I saw Devil in Ohio, which feels like a low rent version of Servant. It's very bland and it's not very good. But I watched the whole goddamn thing. I don't know why.
Ain't that just the way?
There's so many good things to watch. And I sat there for 8 episodes, 5 hours and 56 minutes, I think is what it said, watching this fucking thing that is so bland. It's so inoffensive. It's like, it's not even terrible. It's just so inoffensively boring.
Ew, that's even worse. You're like,
yeah.
It's just like nothing. Oh, quick side note. I watched the first episode of Rings of Power and I really liked it. Okay.
Wasn't it good?
Yeah. But yeah, so we started it. Anyway.
Good. Awesome. So the twisty new horror film, you talked about it last week. I finally saw Barbarian. And again, no spoilers. We're not going to spoiler this. We're not going to spoiler this?
We're not going to spoiler this.
We're not going to spoil this, but for our Patreon listeners, we might be releasing an episode at some point, just on addition to our Fresh Wounds, as like a spoiler cast of that when it comes out on VOD so that everyone has a chance to watch it. So we might just throw that out there just for funsies,
because it's just fun to talk about that movie.
But the movie's great. I absolutely loved it. I love a movie that I can go in and I don't know where the movie is going to go. And I don't know where it's going to keep going because this movie just inverts on itself, twists, does fun things. Just what I loved is that the trailer does not give away the movie. I thought the trailer was going to give away the film.
The fucking slightest doesn't give away the movie.
No, not at all. And I was like so blown away by how little the trailer actually shows. I was like, this is how you do a fucking trailer, because I went in going, I was a little afraid that it was going to show a lot of what the movie was about. This movie is great. I can't really talk about it too much more than what we've said, because I don't want to spoil anything in this. This is a film you want to go in blind. But I'm just going to say this movie is Scarred for Life approved. It's going to be on my top 10 list for the year. I can't imagine it not being high up there on my list. This movie is great. If you can and feel safe, go see it in a movie theater. I have a feeling it'll probably be out on VOD before Halloween, I'm hoping. So maybe it'll be out. I don't know. But yeah. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Fantastic performances. And it's not even a spoiler to say that, what's his bucket that you said last week? Justin Long is an absolute asshole trash in this. And it's not even a spoiler to say that.
Yeah. Put the whole man in the garbage can. But I feel bad for other horror movies coming out this year. Let's just say that.
Absolutely. Like, I don't know from a big wide release horror film that you can get much better than this.
No.
It reminds me of how I felt about Malignant. Completely different movie, completely different twists and turns, nothing to do with Malignant except that this surprised the hell out of me in the same way that movie did.
Yeah. Yes.
More so, I would say. So that's all I can really say about it, because again, I don't want to spoil anything. I just wanted to say that I saw it. I absolutely loved it.
I'm so glad that so many people like this movie.
I know. I'm seeing nothing but good things. And I was a little unsure because it is, it's not a traditional film, shall we say? And so I was kind of curious how that was going to go over, but it seems like most people are just like over the moon with it. So Horror Peak prequel. I'm really excited to see this one too. I'm hopefully seeing it this weekend, but tell me all about this one.
So I saw Pearl, the extraordinary prequel directed by Ty West. I did not get one of the cool bandanas. I'm so mad because I saw it at a press screening. Wah. But anyway, yes, cat cameo. They keep opening the door in and out because they're little hellions. So this is the prequel to X. Obviously, X came out earlier this year. This is the story behind Pearl, who is, sorry everyone, the killer in X, and this is kind of like her origin story and what happened to kind of explain why she is the way that she is. And this is very 1940s, 1930s Wizard of Oz Technicolor film. It feels like an homage to that era of filmmaking from West. Okay. It's very it's so bright and colorful, again, like very Technicolor. It's very much like daytime horror. The thing with it is that it's not like X. Like, do not go into it expecting like a horror movie like X, because it's much more of kind of like a character study with some horror elements.
Okay.
But it's not at all like what happened in X. It's much more an examination of like repression and puritanical ideals on feminine bodies and what that leads to, and a pressure cooker for violence. So there's a lot more of that kind of exploration going on with Pearl, and kind of not excusing at all her behavior, but kind of like giving us a deeper look into like where she comes from and this link between her and Maxine of wanting to be stars and like trying to do whatever it takes to be a star. I really liked it. I know that there are some people who are like, this is nothing like X, it's not a horror movie, blah, blah, blah. I really enjoyed it. It's so different from X, but I keep saying that, but like, because I want people to understand, like, you're not going to get what you got in that first one. But I think if you have that expectation, it's really interesting. And the cool thing is, like, they wrote this in 2 weeks, or like a couple weeks. So Mia Goth actually helped write this one. This is her first writing credit. She helped write this one. While they were kind of like in their quarantine period during COVID in New Zealand, they were like, well, what the fuck else are we gonna do? And I think West was really interested in Pearl and kind of digging into this character, and so that's where the prequel came in. So like, it feels a little bit kind of like a concept-y a little bit. Like, you can feel it's a little bit rushed, and like, but that's not a bad thing. I just think like you can kind of feel that vibe in it, but it's still beautiful to see. Mia Goth is incredible again. And we're getting a third one, Maxine, with 3 X's, with Maxine in the 80s, probably as a porn star or navigating the porn industry. Apparently it's not going to be looking at like the VHS industry and the importance of porn and the rise of VHS tapes. So
I would say that the trailer's doing a good job of trying to separate the two, because I did not get X at all from that trailer. Mm-hmm. I do have a confession. I don't know if I confessed this when we talked about this on Little Cuts, but it took me a very long time to realize that Mia Goth played Pearl in the original movie.
Okay.
And like, yes, there's that shot of, you know, on the television, and I honestly thought that it was Maxine, and that she like used to be named Pearl, and she's like, I was so confused at the end of the movie.
Oh, okay.
I know that makes me look stupid, but I really was confused by the end of the movie. And so when they were talking about Pearl and Mia Goth, I was like, what are you talking about? And then I realized, but it took me an exceptionally long period of time to realize that Mia Goth played both characters.
God, and she's incredible. I want Ty West to make a musical after watching this movie. It has like a lot of musical-like qualities to it.
It looks like it does.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Very Wizard of Oz.
Very Wizard of Oz. She grinds a scarecrow at one point. That's fun. It's not a spoiler.
Like,
it's just
grinds?
Like basically like fucks a scarecrow.
Okay.
There's no penetration, but she basically, yeah.
You do you, girl.
You do, girl. You know what? Whatever you need in this horrendous situation you find yourself in. Anywho.
Just don't get splinters. That's the only thing I would be afraid of.
She's wearing pants. She was wearing pants.
Okay. Okay, triumphing. More power to you.
Sorry, I should have qualified that one. Sorry. Oops. What's this adorable mockumentary?
So speaking of sex, no.
I'm sorry, E. I'll just wrote hey humping, and I'm just like, I'm gonna die.
Hey humping. I don't even know how to segue from that to this most adorable PG movie I've ever seen called Marcel, the Shell with Shoes On.
Oh, you saw it! I haven't seen it yet. Oh boy, it's gonna be a fun transition from that into what I'm talking about.
Girl, I know.
Anyway.
So Marcel, the Shell with Shoes On, which is a A24 movie as well. So there's the connection, I guess. I didn't know what to expect with this movie. I just knew that it had this adorable... I didn't really know what it was. I think it's a slug.
We've never seen the video? We never watched, like, the initial... Marcel the Shell with shoes on. He's a little shell. Sometimes he uses a Dorito as a hang glider.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I did.
I really
didn't
fucking
know.
love Marcel the Shell. Anyway.
I didn't even know until, like, probably around the time the movie came out that he was based on a short film. I didn't know. But, so this is directed by Dean Fleischer Camp and written by him and also co-starring him and also Jenny Slate as the voice of Marcel, the titular shell with shoes on. That I believe is a snail. Is that...
No, he's just a shell. He's not
because he talks about how like you have to like find new shells, and some of his family members, one of them was a tampon.
Oh yeah. I think he's just a shell. I don't think I think it's just like a weird species of shell. I think.
But,
I never got the idea that he was like a slug or he's just like some weird like shell people.
But it's a documentary about him where Dean Fleischer Camp, his character Dean, rents like an Airbnb and discovers Marcel, who is living there alone with his I think grandmother named Connie, played by Isabella Rossellini, who this is the second movie or the second thing I've seen her in recently. She has this really great cameo in a TV show that I don't want to spoil. But she plays Connie, his grandmother, and it's just the two of them living in this Airbnb because all of their people left, unfortunately, when the people that used to live in the house left, and the guy just sort of scooped out his drawer into his luggage, where in the drawer is where people were hiding when the bad stuff was happening, and takes them. And so he is stranded there with his grandma, trying to live in this house and do things as a small shell that his community used to do together. So he would create, he would use like the mixer to shake the tree so that apples will fall out of the tree, and he has to like do all this. There's some really cute things where he tips over honey and he uses honey to like walk on the wall. So there's little tiny honey footprints as he is walking up the wall. There's all these little cute little things that he has to do to basically navigate being a small shell in a human-sized world when his community is gone. And it's very emotional. This movie made me cry so fucking hard because he's trying to make his life. He has this ailing grandmother who is losing her mental faculties, it seems like, and...
Jesus Christ.
It's
making me upset.
It's so sad, but also heartwarming, and it becomes like the Dean is filming Marcel and putting the stuff on YouTube, and Marcel's getting all of this like famous, and people are showing up at the house, and it just like builds up this story about this little shell that is trying to be independent but is missing his community, and it's so good. It's made me cry. I just like had my box of Kleenex and just like would grab one, go blow my nose, throw it to the side, and grab another one because it was making me fucking sob. It's so good though.
A little man, he's just a little man trying to find his way in the world.
It's so sad.
I love him so much.
It's so sad.
That's why I don't want to watch it. I love the videos growing up, and I was like, I can't. I should watch this because I love the videos, but like, whew.
It's so good, and it's animated so well. It's just, it's a marvel. It's a marvel of a movie.
All right.
It's one of my favorites that I've seen this year.
Oh, okay.
I highly recommend it, but just make sure you have that box of Kleenex ready, because I was not ready. I was not ready for this little fucking shell to just honey walk all over my heart.
Oh, little footprints on your heart, little honey heart.
It's so cute.
Oh my goodness.
So, in the same realm as this, what is this book that seared into your consciousness?
So, I read something that is one of the most upsetting things I've ever read. It is called Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana, whatever. This book had been like all over TikTok. I am on like horror book talk quite a bit, and this is always on the list of like disturbing books that are like, really upsetting. And I was like, Bet.
I don't know you were going to say that.
Bet. Let's find out. So basically the book is about a woman who is obsessed with serial killers and writes to serial killers in prison. And she has developed this like very close relationship with a serial killer named Edmund Cox. And it's like, this is her obsession. And she's also taking care of her sister, her older sister, who was in a horrible accident. And is now like has limited mental faculties after the accident. So Lori, this character, is taking care of her sister, works at a diner, and is frequently communicating with the serial killer, who she also visits in prison. And one day, the serial killer says, "Prove yourself as like my number one fan," because it's like lots of women are like writing him and being like groupies of serial killers, and this is like a look into the mindset of one of these people. But he says, okay, I need you to do this thing for me. I need you to go and see the Riverman. And she's like, okay, like he's just like some random dude, like it's totally fine. No, he's not some random fucking dude. It's fucking woo. So she goes, she brings her sister, because she can't leave her sister alone. So her sister, who is disabled, joins her on this quest to see the Riverman, and so many fucked up things happen along the way. Let me tell you, at one point I had to put the book down and I gagged. I don't do that. I do not do that. I gagged and had to put my phone away. I was reading it on Kindle. I had to put it away. I was like, I can't do
Holy shit.
Yeah, there's a lot. If you're gonna read this, please check the trigger warnings. Like, there's a lot of like gore, but there's also a lot of really horrendous thematic stuff going on that involves incest and rape.
Okay.
So it's a lot. Like, I didn't read the trigger warnings going into it, and I was just like, it's just like, Lori is the most fucked up main character of a book I've seen in a good long time. It's just twisted. I don't even know what else to say. And I don't want to spoil anything, but like, if you're into like extreme literature, give it a shot. But like, I honestly don't know if I can recommend this in good faith to like most people. Like, I think
I was gonna ask, like, it might be a weird word, but did you?
I'm
okay.
Glad I read it.
I mean, it triggered emotions.
I haven't been that. I both hated it, but read almost the entire thing in one day, and then I was like, I have to stop reading this before I go to bed. Like, I was like, I cannot read this in bed. Like, it's just gonna fuck up my head. And then I finished it today, because I was like, I gotta put this away for a couple days. Like, it's a lot. It's like it's very compelling, but it's also just like deeply upsetting, because again, Lori is the worst main character. Like deplorable from like an ethical standpoint. So yeah, it's something. If you're into stuff like that, give it a try. But like, I can't really recommend it to people who like aren't into like splatter punk.
So what I'm hearing is that it's a good companion piece for Marcel.
Let's have like if you just want like two extreme experiences, like watch Marcel, and while you're crying, start reading this one and just be like, or read the book first and watch Marcel, and you'll have like a palate cleanser. Oh my god, fucking god, the way that he like Triana.
He's a good writer then.
Flesh, he made me gag. So yeah, that was that. Gone to see the Riverman.
Who's the writer again?
Christopher Triana is the writer, and he's written a bunch of other books I haven't read. I've discovered a thing about myself, that reading disturbing books is harder for me than watching disturbing movies.
I mean, I think that kind of makes sense in some ways.
Crazy.
Like I mean, I have a very overactive imagination, and I can easily fill in details that are conjured much more clearly and horrifyingly than can be displayed on TV sometimes.
And I also think what happens in books that I think gets to me is movies you don't, like, you can kind of represent smell a little bit. Like, oh, it smells bad. But in books, like, he goes on about, like, the disgusting smell of death, the black, ropey, rotting intestines. I'm like, good lord, motherfucker. Like, the maggots wriggling in her flesh. And I'm just like, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm just gonna die. Like, I can't stop reading this, but I want to stop reading it. And I kept groaning, and Steve was like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not, but I can't stop. Yeah, Tony's gonna listen to an audiobook. Oh, Godspeed.
Wow.
Like, pretty opposite of that, but gory kind of. What was our horror comedy for this?
Oh boy, this week, like, here's the thing. I try to introduce anyone I can, and I will talk about this movie any way I can, even though there's a lot of problems with this film. But I think this movie is fantastic. It is The Boneyard from 1991, filmed in 1989, which I think makes sense because it feels like an 80s film that time forgot, even though it was released in the 90s. Direct to VHS.
Explain a couple things.
I could talk about this movie for days, but I gotta know, what did you think of my favorite protagonist, a fat English teacher who's depressed and is a psychic, who I just absolutely love and adore, and Stan as a fat English, not professor, but went to school to be an English teacher. I'm not psychic, have some depression. I feel seen, and I loved her. But I gotta know, what did you think of this film?
I liked the last part of it. I didn't dislike, that sounds bad. I loved her. I was like, oh my god, we have a fat protagonist who, like, isn't the butt of all the jokes. Like, I was very excited that she was in this film. Like, because there isn't a lot of fat representation positive in horror, and she just exists as a person. The big thing that gets people, like, that people talk about is her depression and her being a psychic. So it's like 40 minutes of this, like, it's like a depressed psychic and two cops, like, trying to figure out why this guy had a bunch of, like, bones in his basement. And they're like, there's kids' bodies down here, dude, what the fuck? And so I was like, okay, like, because I know there's a goddamn zombie poodle on the poster. So I was like, what? When does the zombie poodle come? I was like, what is happening? Like, this does not have the right tone. And then as soon as shit hits the fan at, like, 40-minute mark, and then it just, like, goes bananagrams. Very Evil Dead 2 vibes to it, which I love. Phyllis Diller turns into this crazy fucking creature that looks like something out of Mars Attacks or a Tim Burton movie, which is a good thing. It's very weirdly anti-Asian or, like, mystical Orientalism stuff.
That is the
going on
biggest
in this movie.
problem.
I didn't really understand what was really going on there. I was like, what is happening? Like, one of my first notes was like, I am not entirely sure what's happening here. And that was, like, when they were trying to, like, explain, like, there's this guy and he's in the basement and somehow he
has
magic.
A family curse that is
weird.
Oriental, and I'm using that as, like, in the pejorative that they would use at that time, has, like, that sort of Oriental mysticism that was so popular in, like, the 80s and early 90s, where he, like, is cursed and he has to feed kids to this thing in order to, like, keep it at bay.
The flesh.
Not
keeps it
100%
at bay.
sure. The zombies, when they pop up, are incredibly offensive looking in their face and in their eyes.
Yeah.
There's that whole thing, which is like a huge problem that I do have with this movie. It definitely is of the time, as we say. But what is so wild to me is that the first 40 minutes of this film is so fucking dark. It's bleak. It is a woman.
It is bleak. It's
Yeah.
like sad as shit. It's a bunch of dead kids.
It's
like,
a woman
what the
who
fuck?
helps the cops find bodies of dead kids because she is a psychic, and the ghosts like pull to her. And there's this like nightmare where she sees like this dead kid crying, and it's almost played like a scare gag where the dead kid starts walking toward her, but all she wants to do is give her a hug for thanking her for reuniting her body and putting herself to rest. It is like dark, and there's a line that I think is really quite good for this movie. Just what the hell am I supposed to do with the grief, Jersey? She is like tormented by this grief. She has turned her home into like a shrine to depression. She is being crushed by this. And so we have this that eventually turns into a fucking morgue receptionist named Poopinplatz, who turns into a giant zombie, and her dog named Floofsims that turns into a killer poodle, a giant killer poodle.
Like the climax is I'm running.
Like,
from
what the
killer
fuck?
poodle. Giant. Like ginormous. But okay, so my question here is: did the kids become the weird zombie creatures? For those were the kids, correct? I was not like 100%.
I've seen this movie
on,
like 6 or 7
what?
times, and I'm still not 100% sure. But I think.
And who was the?
I think the kids, because like he makes a comment about how they appear like dead people, but they're actually demons or something, and so they've just were pretending to be dead, and then they come alive. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay. And then there's the woman who they cut. There's like a woman on the morgue. Like,
she tried to kill herself and was unsuccessful.
That's right. Okay. And she wakes up while they're slicing into her on the table at the morgue, on top of everything else. And I was just like, what? It's like, it just goes from 0 to 60 very quickly in terms of just like people coming back to life. There are zombies that the practical effects are both really incredible and incredibly offensive. Like, it's like these two very interesting kind of like feelings to hold about that. And they just start eating people and throwing up on them.
Stuffing parts of their flesh into their mouth and turning them into zombies.
Ooey gooey. Yeah.
The score, by the way, fucking is a banger. It
is a banger. I was like, wait a second. That's surprising.
And it's a Thanksgiving movie. It says Happy Thanksgiving. There's a big banner when they go to the morgue that says Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, also, okay, it's called the Boneyard because they call this morgue the Boneyard because it's closing down, which I love that it's called the Boneyard. And I love that Phyllis Diller's fucking poodle has a little pink bow and hangs out in the Boneyard. It's just, like, as soon as they get to the morgue, it gets, like, kind of ridiculous, and then it just gets like into, like, they're all
2 different
fighting
movies
crazy
smashed
zombies.
together.
It is. And when, she first, what the fuck
Which
is
one?
her name?
Allie.
The main woman, the fat. So Allie, when Allie kind of discovers what's going on, it's got like, it feels very pre-Resident Evil. Like walking into the morgue lab zombie reveal, like you're walking into this like medical space covered in blood, broken glass, and you discover something eating flesh. And it has, I mean, I know it's not only Resident Evil, but I just thought of like, feels like a precursor to that a little bit in terms of like the way that's framed. But she grabs the axe out of the wall. It's actually a pretty good moment of tension as the camera follows her to discovering what is happening exactly. And then we have our zombie friends. I also think it's horrifying that there's a good chunk where they're like talking to the guy, the mortician, and he's on the TV, and there's just a tableau of dead children just like rotting in front of us, and I was like, oh my god, that's pretty fucked up imagery. I get more than I was expecting of just a tableau of dead children.
It's very grim, which is so surprising because of the turns that it takes. And what I think is fascinating about this is that it was written and directed by James Cummins, who was in the makeup department for The Thing and did the special effects for House, a movie we have covered on the podcast, and did special effects for Enemy Mine. So he is like known for makeup, known for visual effects, known for like special effects, and then he directed and wrote this movie, and I believe maybe like a couple more in like the 90s, and then that was it. But he is a special effects person, and I think you can tell, particularly with the puppetry. I think that's why this movie feels in the back half like an 80s movie, because it is coming from someone that did special effects on some pretty big 80s movies, especially the puppetry in like House.
Yeah, I was surprised at how serious it was for a movie that is advertised to be about a
What's funny is that apparently there were two covers. There was a slipcase cover for this, and one of them was emphasizing the humor and one was emphasizing the horror. So there were actually two covers for this movie, which makes sense because it definitely straddles that line between being like almost like a character drama in the beginning that's really fucked up.
It's way less comedy than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be kind of like a slapsticky horror situation, and it's not really. It's just much more serious than I thought.
Apparently, Deborah Rose, who plays Allie, was a method actress and got into a lot of issues with the guy that plays Jersey, Ed Nelson, because Ed Nelson came from like TV and was very like efficient and everything, because TV had to be efficient, particularly back in those days. Yeah. And so you had two different kind of acting styles where she wanted to like get into the character and do all that kind of stuff, and he was just like, no, let's just bang this out. And apparently they got into a lot of issues because she was very slow in terms of
Imagine method acting for a 1991.
Well, and that's what like, because there was like I have the Blu-ray, there's like some special behind the scenes stuff, and there were some interviews, and they're like, yeah, there was a lot of tension on set because what's his name, Ed Nelson, was like, this is a 1990 horror movie or 1989 horror movie, why are you trying to get into character's headspace? And then you have her
like, what are you gonna do, become a psychic? Like, are you gonna like study how to be a psychic? Are you gonna like go to a morgue and hang out with dead kids? Like this ain't Gangs in New York. This isn't like Daniel.
I love that.
I don't mean to knock her.
Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, man, she is acting as if she's acting the fuck out of this, as if like this is like going to be Oscar material. Like, she is playing to the nines, and I love that.
She takes it seriously, which is so funny, but you know what? Good for her. I always say this. I know it's like a broken record, but that's another one of those movies that I feel like people will have more appreciation for someday, maybe, or should. Like, the problematic aspects probably keep it that like it's very like weirdly anti-Asian, like not no bueno. But that fucking giant poop. I was like, is this a Sam Raimi movie? Like, I was like...
And I think that's what I mostly remember every time I watch. I mean, I've seen this movie like 6 or 7 times, but it's like everything I remember is that back half where shit just gets fucking wild. We have like alien montages moving through the vents. We have Poopin' Platz as this giant alien zombie, and her clothes are barely fitting, and so it's like puppet, you almost see like puppet boobage, and so there's that, and there's the fucking poodle. It's just like, it's so wild. But I have to like introduce people to it because I think it's a movie that not many people have seen, and I don't know, maybe there's a good reason for it, but I like it a lot, even though it's a hugely problematic film.
Well, ain't that just the way for the 80s and the 90s?
Seriously.
Like,
A little bit of like a tip to what we're talking about next week. Well, so for Monday, we are talking with filmmaker Duncan Birmingham. His debut feature film, Who Invited Them, just premiered on Shudder, and he brought with him, speaking of problematic movies, Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill.
Yeah.
Which is a great movie.
It's a great movie,
but
it's fucked up.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, but
so
yeah.
There's that. But what
yes.
horror comedy are we talking about next week, Mary Beth?
So we are talking about the 1995 film Dracula Dead and Loving It, which I've never seen.
I can
Terry
quote.
Can quote. So I'm very
Raspberries?
excited.
There are no raspberries
that I will
here.
be watching
I
this.
cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Cool. Anyway, I'm very excited. Listeners, you've heard from us. We want to hear it from you. Have you watched anything or read the one book that we talked about this week? Do you have thoughts for things that we should be covering? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at NB
And I'm a Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred.
And don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe. And also Patreon. We had a couple people sitting in watching us live. So if you want to experience all of that wildness, support us on Patreon, please, and thank you.
Yeah, man. There's Steve might show up. You won't see him on the podcast, but you'll see him on the live stream.
You also get us a little bit more
see him,
unfiltered
and
in the
my
video
cats.
version. So
Oh yeah. Well, thank you to Eric Power for music. Nope. Thank you to Eric Power. Jesus Christ. Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
Okay, I'm gonna hit stop, everyone. But just wanted to thank you, because if I hit stop, it's gonna kick you guys out. So thanks for watching. Love you guys. Thanks for the support.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children!
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.